Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast, bringing you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. Before we begin, we can jump around the podcast by using the timestamps in the description below. This is really weird because I've had to flip it and there's a reason why. I'm Ben, and as always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor, as well as special guest Lewis. Hello to both of you.
Hi.
How you doing, fella? This is going to be weird.
Really
See, now we have had two of us on this podcast for 14 weeks now, and now we're adding a third person in, and everybody's going to be sat there going, is it my turn to talk? Do I get to speak now? I don't want to talk over anybody else.
You need like a Pokeball. If you're holding the Pokeball, it's your turn to speak, okay? I mean, none of us can see one another, but if we just imagine a Pokeball. So right now I'm holding this Pokeball, which means I can speak. So before we jump into, we've got a little bit of news from the Pokemon Nintendo, well, the Pokemon news from the Nintendo Direct, but
Lewis,
Conor,
who are
you?
you?
Talk about why? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually Captain Fidget's editor on the YouTube channel. So pretty much any of the videos that you watch, will of course have been presented by the wonderful Conor here, but will have been edited by myself.
So he's being very modest there. He takes on, yes, an editing role, but he basically directs a lot of it now as well.
That's true.
To an extent. So, for instance, I will write, I will record my end, and then edit all the audio and send that off to him. And he will take that raw audio and turn it into a video. It's like all the visuals are his ideas, all the animations are his ideas. Everything that comes up on screen, other than my voice, is completely him. The guy is he's a wizard.
Thank you.
Oh, that's what I love.
I tell you what,
that's what I love to hear.
Ever since we've moved to these theory videos on the Captain Fidget channel, I have to say, to a degree, I've ended up sort of animating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's a different world.
I can imagine the theory videos are very different than the Nuzlocke. The Nuzlocke are kind of they're quite easy to once you get into the routine and you know what you're doing. Nuzlocke are quite easy to do, but theory videos and I've not done theory videos, but I've done top 5 videos. And I know that like people just like to see things constantly happening on screen, and you're having to fill in these areas where someone's talking, but you're thinking, I need something to be happening on screen, and it's constantly shifting between, okay, showing this. Otherwise, you just think that there's a risk that people are going to get bored and click off it. And I'm sure we all agree here, and people that don't do content might not realize that, a 5-minute video takes way longer to pull together. You're talking hours spread over days that bleed into weeks.
Absolutely.
So we get how much time and effort goes into these. And you know what? Lewis, you do an absolute bang-up job. The videos that you've done for Conor are absolutely amazing. Do we want to talk a little bit about why you're joining us for this episode, Lewis?
Absolutely.
Which is?
Why are you joining us?
Obviously not for your skills in podcasting, buddy.
No, sorry.
Wow.
Oh, you can tell we go way back.
Yeah.
You can.
So this week, we are going to be doing a little bit of a dive into the first Pokemon movie. And when I say doing a bit of a dive, I don't just mean, having a discussion, but we've gone ahead and seen it was one of the Japanese releases. I think, Conor, you know exactly which one.
Yeah. We'll go into that later. I'll bring it
right,
up later.
Okay,
don't worry.
Okay, right. I've got some questions there. So before we jump into that, I just wanted to very quickly touch on the recent Nintendo Direct. Because I don't know if you saw it, but there was a little bit of Pokemon news in there. We are finally getting Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2 coming to the Nintendo Switch Online, as long as you've got the expansion pack subscription. Now, apparently they're coming along next year, so 2023, so we've got to wait a little bit longer. But what do you guys feel about this news? You excited?
So weirdly enough, me and Lewis have actually spoken about this many times, about them bringing Pokemon Stadium to Nintendo Online, the N64 Online expansion pass. We were like, look, if they bring it there, it'll actually give me a reason to go out and buy the expansion pass.
Mm.
But, and it was a very big but, they had to include the Game Boy games on Nintendo Switch Online first. I need red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal on Nintendo Switch Online, part of the expansion pass, preferably, but at least give them to me. Have them available on the Switch so that I can transfer my Pokemon from red, blue, and yellow into Stadium.
Into the game. Yeah, I get that.
Otherwise, you're just using rental teams, which are garbage.
Yes, and which are rubbish.
I have only ever played that game with rental teams, and it was actually it was one of the earliest reasons I didn't get into competitive Pokemon, because I thought I was just no good.
Oh, I will. So when I played it when I was a kid, now I didn't have an N64. I had to borrow one. And my friend that I borrowed it from literally had the transfer pack. I had Pokemon Yellow. There is nothing better than seeing these 2D mons that you have grown up with their sprites ported over into a full 3D game using all the moves and the nicknames that you've given them. It is absolutely amazing. So, of course, a little bit disappointing because one of the news that they've said is that you can't bring Pokemon across from other games to battle. Obviously, there's no transfer kit or that kind of functionality currently with the Nintendo Switch. A little bit... I don't know why they haven't done something with Pokemon Home, because surely that would be the bridge.
Unfortunately,
no, it's not.
That
I know. Because they all use different... They're all built on different software with probably different code, and
so you got to consider that the last thing the Game Boy games were available on were the DS. So you're talking about trying to make. I think Cerebi Joe had a very good set of tweets about it. That basically
I saw
trying to get Home to integrate with it. I mean, they've only just managed to get Home integrated with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. You know, it's clearly not an easy feat. And you can't do anything with the DS because, well, the DS store is shutting down in a couple of months. So having these services available isn't really the way forward. It needs to be the red and blue, yellow need to be available on the Switch.
Yeah.
That's the only way forward. And I'm really surprised they haven't done it yet. They would make so much money. You put those in the expansion pass. You do a Game Boy expansion pass. That's it. You sell it instantly.
Yeah. Make it like, I don't know why they don't do a Pokemon expansion pass. Like, okay, online costs you this much a year, but for an additional 5, 10, 15, whatever they decided, you would get a choice of 1 Gen 1 game, 1 Gen 2 game, and Pokemon Home included. Like, people would go crazy over that. People would be snapping at their heels to get that. So I don't know why they're doing it. One thing that they have said that will be available, though, is the mini games in both of the Stadium titles will be playable online, so you'll be able to play multiplayer modes for them, which is a nice little feature.
Pokemon Mario Party.
Pretty much. And I did enjoy playing them as a kid, but I must admit, as someone that has transferred Pokemon over and played Pokemon Stadium, it's a little bit disappointing, but as soon as I saw it announced, I thought, we're only getting rental teams, aren't we? I mean, that's it.
The thing is, with Pokemon Stadium on the N64, it's... the whole point of that game is transferring your Pokemon from handheld onto the big screen. They made a change with that with the GameCube, with Gale of Darkness and Colosseum. But they kind of went back to that formula on the Wii with Battle Revolution, trading across your Diamond and Pearl and Platinum mons. So,
because of course, back in the day, that used to be actually how competitive was held, was in Battle Revolution.
Yeah. So it almost feels like it's kind of a husk of a game without that feature.
The other thing as well is, like, what was the big selling point of Stadium back in the day? You get to see your Pokemon in 3D fight each other.
Yeah.
We have Sword and Shield. It exists, guys. You can go play it.
You can do it. Yeah, I get it. I think it's one of those things where people take it for granted now, but back in the day, when you had to have 2 Game Boys, two cartridges, and a link cable to be able to do all that. The fact that you could just plug it into an N64 while you're at home was just a fantastic feature. But like we've said, it does feel a little bit like it's missing the thing that, like, the unique selling point that it had is unfortunately not there. I'm still going to play these because I do subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, and playing them with my daughter will be absolutely fantastic. I can be like, this was around before you were born. I was a little boy, spent ages on this. But yeah, I can't help but feel it's just Nintendo all over. It's like, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back every single time. It's, come on, you bring these out without some of the functionality, and you know what? I like to think they will have looked into, okay, how can we make this work? And they've probably come to the conclusion of either they can't make it work, or the amount of time, effort, and money it would take isn't worth what they would get back ultimately.
I don't understand. How hard is it? Like,
I
again,
don't
speaking
know.
as a pure layman here, how hard is it to put a Game Boy emulator on the Switch?
Yes. I honestly,
because all
I
it needs to
don't
do, all
know.
Stadium needs to do is access the save data. So as long as the save data is available on the Switch, that's it. It's fine. It's there.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's unfortunate. But anyway, right. Shall we move on to why Lewis is actually here then?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The Pokémon, the first movie, aka Mewtwo Strikes Back.
Apparently, so I came into this thinking I'd watch the Japanese version, but from the comment that one of you mentioned earlier, this is one of the Japanese versions. Am I right there?
I will clarify for our audience at home, and apparently those sat here as well. There were multiple versions of this film that went out. So there was the original theatrical release of Mewtwo Strikes Back. It had purely animation all the way through, and it didn't have the I story at the beginning, which we will go into.
Ah, yes. Okay.
A year later, on Japanese TV, the version that we watched today came out with the added story, which was based on a radio drama, believe it or not.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
What?
So the pre-story that's like 3-4 minutes long at the beginning, that was based on a radio drama that released the year before to like coincide with the movie, because radio dramas were still a thing in 1998. In Japan at least. So they released a version on Japanese television with the I story at the beginning, and they updated a bunch of the visuals to have CG. So like the bubbles you can see, they're all CG. The clouds are CG, and unfortunately the doors are CG, which...
Yes, they really stand out.
They really do stand out. They're not great. I don't know why they did it, but that's the main differences, really. So that's what we saw. That's what we're reviewing today. Why the Japanese version, not the English one? Well, we all have nostalgia around the English version. We all watched it growing up, I presume. Yes?
Yeah.
I went to cinema to see it. I've still got my promo Electrobuzz card and a few others from that you got from certain cinema chains.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah.
See, weirdly enough, I didn't watch mine in the cinema. I think I only had it on VHS. And I was watching it because I watched it earlier on today, and I was like, well, this scene looks a lot better than 16:9. That's why.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
it's not 4:3.
No.
But the English version, obviously, I believe it was still when Pokemon was under the banner of 4Kids over in the English-speaking world. So there was a lot of stuff. You know, these are the same guys who did like this rice ball is a donut kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they were still taking out a lot of the Japanese references. They were still watering it all down. So there's references in this to God and what it means to be alive that was completely missed from the dubbing version of it. There are other differences in here as well. Some that I think I prefer the Japanese version, some I prefer the American version. But I thought, here's something most people won't have seen. Let's get these boys to watch it and see what they think.
Right. Well, it was a bit of a shock because I hadn't seen the English version for a very, very long time. We're talking, I don't know, when a couple of years maybe after it first came out was the last time I saw it. But however, maybe the last year I did skim through the updated version.
Oh, Evolution.
That's currently on Netflix. Is that what it's called? Where it's all like 3D animated and all that. So I went through that a little bit and I was like, oh, okay, this is probably great for somebody that's new to Pokemon and doesn't want to watch the old style animation, which is rather dated. But I was like, this isn't for me. So I didn't really watch it. So coming into this, was I was like, when you suggested it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I think I'd enjoy this. The first 5 minutes, I went from being, oh yeah, I know this film, to what is happening? What is going on? Who is this child? And then I went down this rabbit hole of like, sorry to jump ahead, but Mewtwo isn't the only clone.
No.
The whole point of Mewtwo is because this scientist wants to revive his child. I think is her name.
In the Japanese, she's called Ai. When we
Ai.
eventually got this story, because this came out on the sequel DVD over in the UK and America and stuff like that, we got it as a short on the sequel DVD. She's called Amber.
Amber, that's it. So the clone is called Ai too, but also, which fits with Mewtwo. But then also there's a Squirtle clone, Charmander clone, and Bulbasaur clone. And this completely threw me because I went from, I remember everything about the first film to, wait, maybe the clones that he has of Charizard, Bulbasaur, Blastoise, and Venusaur aren't the ones from Ash and the other trainers. They're actually ones that he's grown up. And suddenly I went from going, oh, I know this film, to what is happening? What is going on? The whole, just having to read the dubs as well. And I'm suddenly thinking, this, straight off the bat, I'm thinking, this is a completely different film. The tone is so different.
Yeah, massively
That's it.
so. Go on, Lewis. I won't cut you off.
So, with this little bit of backstory at the start of the film, it's like I said, it completely changes not everything, but so much.
Yeah.
You know, when I and Mewtwo are floating around in this non-space of consciousness, and they're discussing what it means to be a human or a Pokemon. And straight from there, that's when you understand the idea of Mewtwo and his struggle with the outside world and what it means to be alive or to be a clone or to be original. And they also have a moment. So some of the clones start failing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I turns around and mentions to Mewtwo that all living beings cry when they're hurt.
Yes.
But humans are different because they cry when they're sad.
Yeah.
And just as she's leaving and Mewtwo is the only one left, he's crying and he doesn't understand why.
No.
And oh boy.
Which sets up the whole end of the movie that never made any sense.
Yeah.
No. So, because in the English version, the message is different, and this happens several times throughout the film where what the original dub is and the message that they say in the English version are completely different messages.
Yeah.
So in this version, there is no, I don't think there's any setup for the tears reviving Ash. By the way, spoilers for a 20-odd-year-old film. Whereas in the English version, they constantly keep coming back to, they talk about prophecies and being able to revive, Pokemon can revive people with tears. Whereas in the Japanese version, there is none of that. Like, there is nothing about that. But what the Japanese version does benefit from is this gives a backstory to Mewtwo, and he goes from being, like, watching the original, like, the only thing you know about Mewtwo is it was a clone, and if you've read some of the diary entries in Cinnabar Island, in the mansion on Cinnabar Island, you go, okay, right, this isn't a Pokemon that is, it's a dangerous Pokemon, ultimately. Whereas I got that in the English version as a kid growing up, but I didn't understand his reasons for why he was basically really angry at humanity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's a clone, but it doesn't really jump into why. Whereas this flips it to, okay, you understand why Mewtwo is so upset when I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, when he finally awakens after, spending all this time in status, why he is so angry, and justifiably so, at humanity.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. They erased a lot of this and a lot of the deep messages they kind of tried to go for in the Japanese version. I don't think they nail it. I don't think it's fully run home, and I think it is missing some bits that, weirdly enough, the English version actually gets in there. But it almost feels like, again, they tried to water it down for a Western audience. They were like, whoa, that's a little bit philosophical. Let's take all that out. We don't need any of that. I mean, again, you're talking about Dr. Fuji. who recreates his daughter's consciousness in hopes of cloning her after she dies. So in the radio drama that this is based on, she actually turns around and she's like, well, actually, I'm I2 or I3 or I4. I'm not sure how many of there's been now. And it's like, it's so dark.
Yeah.
It's so grim that this guy is just so stuck in the past, holding on to what he's lost, that he will just keep recreating. And Mewtwo is just a side project to him. He's not the end goal. He's just like what he has to make because Giovanni's funding him. That's how he gets funding to resurrect his daughter, is to make Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is absolutely, it's heartbreaking for this side. I mean, ethics and morals aside, like the fact that in the Pokemon universe that you can pretty much get away with anything, it seems. It's absolutely heartbreaking for the scientist, because he's just doing this because he loved his daughter and his daughter's no longer around, unfortunately. But it's heartbreaking for Mewtwo as well, because like he wakes up and suddenly it's okay. He's got 3 Pokemon. He's got a child that is teaching him all about this, what life means, like what the sun is, what wind is, and
what to
what
expect
tears are
in the real world. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just goes to, okay, this is, maybe Mewtwo, if he'd grown up with this love and support, would be a very different Pokemon than how he's presented as an adult in this film. And yet that just gets taken away from him, and he's put in status for I don't know how long, but it feels like a long time, because he goes from being a young Mewtwo, like the fact that we got to see, it's weird in Pokemon, because in the games, like if you got a Mewtwo from an egg, it's like a fully sized Mewtwo, whereas in this, it's like, well, there's a Mewtwo is it has a junior form, so to speak. It's smaller. It's not fully grown, and we get to that Mewtwo, that version of Mewtwo is so innocent, and it just wonders, and it just tries to understand, and like simple concepts that we understand, like wind. It's like, what is this? What is going on? And it does help to explain how it knows things when it finally breaks out. But this version really brings like humanity to Mewtwo, which is kind of it's kind of where the Japanese version goes in terms of what does it mean to be a Pokemon? What does it mean to be a human? And what does it mean to,
be real, be alive?
Be real, yes. Whereas the English version doesn't do any of that. And I think this initial part is needed to understand that, or at least really hammer home that point. It's one thing that I think the Japanese version does really well, is it brings that humanity to Mewtwo that the original, the English version didn't have.
Yeah, it certainly sets a different tone for the movie as well going forward. Because after this, sorry, not to cut you off, Lou. After this, we do go on to like, and it's weird. It's weird seeing, because I've watched all of the versions of this very recently, because I did a video on the multiple origins of Mewtwo and stuff, which is where I found this. I was like, I'm going to make somebody else watch this.
And you made 2. Well done.
But so like you cut from there into the opening that we get, which is like those stings over Mew swimming through the water and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's all narrated in the English version. It's like the wonderful world of Pokemon, mysteries, and Mew soars off into the sky over this like wondrous music. But in this, it's not. It's haunting. Like, I will keep coming back to the audio and the soundtrack in this one, because it's so different to the English version that we got for many points.
Yes.
And at the start is the most clear to me, because you get this really haunting soundtrack over Mew flying through the mountains. Because it's not, wow, the wonderful world of Pokemon. It's Mewtwo looking at memories he has of something he's never seen and isn't sure how to put that together in his mind, what that means, who he is, where he's from, what this world is that he's got no experience of. And it sits with you, and you're like, okay.
I never cottoned on that they were memories of, it's quotation mark parent. I never realized. I just assumed Mew was off somewhere having fun and everything and enjoying life, and Mewtwo, using its psychic connection, was able to, almost not spy on it, but also like just look out and see. But you're absolutely right. It makes way more sense to think of it as, no, it has some of the memories from its genetic, parent.
Yeah.
That works so
It's-
well.
It's harsh and it's weird and it's scary.
And should we talk about the breakout scene? Because this is also different between the two.
Go on.
So one of the big differences between the English and the Japanese version is Mewtwo. The reason Mewtwo breaks out in the Japanese version is it's very clear that it is upset that humans created it, not God. It actually asks, like, was I created by God? Do I have parents? And it's therefore unsure why it was created or who it is. Whereas in the English version, it's more, it seems to kick off because it realizes that the scientists and the humans that have created it don't care for it. It's just an experiment for them. And it doesn't understand why it's there.
So I think there is a line, obviously. It's like, who's Mew? Is that my father? Is that my mother? It's like, no, you're a clone. It's like, okay, or you're a copy, as it's referred to. And it's like, oh, well, am I from God? No, humans created you. Only God and humans have the capability to create life. And it's like, ooh, okay. Ooh, okay. It's flying, soaring a little bit too high to the sun there. And yeah, he's on that level of like, I'm not a Pokemon because I'm a copy, but I'm not human because humans created me. So what does that leave me as? What am I? What am I here for? For why? What is the point? And he just goes into this like existential crisis throughout the rest of the movie, and that just drives him insane.
That's it. This backstory provides so much context, but strangely enough, it also does a lot of providing for things outside of the movie. I've noticed as well. So I think I remember anyway from my childhood seeing Giovanni with the armored Mewtwo in the anime.
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
that does happen. He fights Gary with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the time I was bewildered. I think I even remember thinking, well, this can't be Mewtwo. It's got all this metal on it, which, to be honest, gives me big Genesect vibes at this point.
yeah, I get that.
But it also explains that portion of the anime, which I never really understood before. And it also sets up again with I and the clone Charmander and Squirtle and Bulbasaur, this whole sparkling tears life force property, which, as you mentioned, comes into play at the end of the movie as well. But they still keep that to this day.
Yeah, it was one of the things I realized. It's like they were talking about infinity energy all the way back in the first Pokemon movie, the idea of life energy. And again, in that prequel story, the radio drama, they talk about life energy and the fact that Pokemon actually have more life energy than people. And the reason Mew is so imperative to getting in this cloning project is because Mew has infinite life energy, because it's immortal. So its life energy is infinite. And that's why cloning Mew is the key to cloning everything else.
As someone that is a little bit lost here, life energy, what? What?
So infinity energy is noted in the post game of Aura, so Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Infinity energy is Pokemon life energy.
Right.
It's what the ultimate weapon in X and Y utilized.
Okay.
It's what makes Mega Stones. It's why Pokemon can evolve, and it's just a big flash of light. It's why when Pokemon eggs hatch, it's just a big flash of light. It's why nobody's ever seen a Pokemon egg be laid, because they just appear from life energy. It is an energy that persists across the universe, that has theoretically always existed across the universe, and like gets compressed into lots of different styles of energy. That's why we have the different types and the different plates and stuff like that, because it's life energy compressed. So yes, life energy is a thing in Pokemon.
Right. Okay. I've learned something new on this podcast. So hold on, just as a little side tangent, is that something to do with Xerneas and Yveltal as well? Then, yeah.
Yveltal.
So in X and Y, it is, because Xerneas obviously gives life and Yveltal takes it away. It's not that they necessarily have more life energy or give or They are about transferring life energy rather than its progenitor, its origin. They have the power to give it and they have the power to take it away.
Right. Wow. Okay. That's absolutely amazing. Should we wrap up the part with Mewtwo breaking out? Because I just want to briefly touch on Giovanni and Giovanni's offer to Mewtwo, because that's also different between the two versions. Because in the Japanese version, it's more around, I'm going to help you to harness your power, because if I don't, then what happened to this island you will do to the world. And obviously Giovanni isn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He wants to control Mewtwo. Whereas in the English version, Giovanni manipulates Mewtwo into, you could be a partner. Like, we could work together. We could be equals, which sets up the later on when in the English version, Giovanni just goes, we can never be equals. You're a Pokemon. Like, humanity stands above Pokemon. And again, that is one thing that I did like about the English version, is it does help to explain why Mewtwo would be so angry at humanity as a whole, because the few interactions he's had with humanity, they all just see Mewtwo as below them.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And it's, again, where you mentioned this sort of team up on this burning island, it is phrased so differently, and it's because of Mewtwo's search for understanding and meaning, and because that's already been portrayed before, it really helps you to understand this sort of deception that's going on between them. Did you notice, by the way, in the jungle, at the very, very, very start of the movie, those scientists going through?
Mm-hmm.
What about them?
One of them I thought looked weirdly like Giovanni.
No, I don't think any of them are supposed to be Giovanni. Dr. Fuji's supposed to be there. Giovanni's not on that expedition.
But he funds it, doesn't he?
He does fund it.
Yeah.
That's
it. I thought because he was funding it, it would have been there, but
no, he's not on there. He doesn't get his hands dirty.
Nah.
He's got people for that.
No.
it was that smirk.
Yeah. So what? And like, one thing that I did like about, as a bit of an aside, about the Pokemon evolutions. Did you say it was the movie, Connor? So the armor in that. So there's an extra part in that scene
so
where
overdone.
it is, and I think it's a bit overkill until you see the part where Mewtwo starts to break out, and the armor is designed in such a way to contain Mewtwo. So like the arm armor snaps together like a magnet. The same for the legs snap together, and then the spikes that are just overkill, they play a part because they kind of wrap around as if to try and contain Mewtwo. So even though it is a bit over the top, it makes sense from a point of view of, okay, it's there to contain Mewtwo. And it's one thing that actually I did like about that version, is that it implies that Giovanni is, he's obviously must be clever to build up this massive, criminal organization. And that just kind of showed another element of, okay, Giovanni is thinking ahead, that wasn't really in this version, where it's just a load of mechanical arms that tried to shut him down.
Do you want to know something great, actually?
Go on.
From that prequel radio drama, Giovanni did not create Team Rocket.
Wait, what?
His mother did.
His mom did.
His
What?
mother did. A very, very beautiful woman was Giovanni's mother, and he inherited the company from her.
Inherited the company.
Mama Gio.
Wow.
Well, obviously, she's not called that in the Japanese, because that's the thing. So he's called Giovanni in the English version. In the Japanese one, he's called Sakaki. And I'm pretty sure he's just supposed to be a Yakuza boss.
Right.
Obviously, over here, we see him as a mafia boss.
Yeah.
He's got the Italian name that gives him that kind of association.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, very different connotations in the Japanese and English versions.
Wow. Nice little fact there. Fun facts on the podcast. Love it. Shall we move over to Ash's journey now?
Yes. Let's get into
So-
it. So
Go on,
first
go on.
thing I want to talk about
Go
actually
on.
is the opening theme.
Yes.
because they use the opening theme music from the Japanese version rather than the English version that we obviously.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much you know about the differences in the music, So the Japanese opening theme is basically only used in Japan.
Yeah.
Everywhere else uses the English theme or
Oh.
a regional version
Yes.
of it. They'll sort of localize
Yeah.
the English version of the theme of Pokemon because it's just so good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And one thing that I do love about the English version is it's not creepy.
Okay,
Go
so
on.
you're talking about Under the Girl's
Yes.
Skirt, right?
Yes.
Do you know what that's in reference to?
I haven't got a clue. I was just like, what?
So in the opening theme song,
Yeah.
it's even in the English version of it, Pikachu's on like this running thing. He goes past the Charizard, he goes past the Venusaur, he goes past the Blastoise, and he runs under a girl's skirt.
Oh, okay. That makes okay.
The idea being that they're searching everywhere for Pokemon.
I don't know. So what I got from that is typical Japanese anime where I don't know how to describe it. They're a little bit more
Perversion.
perverted is probably the yeah.
The bit where the boy gets a nosebleed.
Yeah, that
pretty
bit.
much. Yeah, it was just like obviously the theme song started playing. It's like, okay, this isn't the theme song that I expected, but it makes sense. It's another country. But then just reading where they're like, even if I have to go through fire, water, grass, forest, earth, clouds, or under that girl's skirt. Eek! I was like, wait, what is this? What?
And then it comes up again, and she's
Yes.
like, "You're persistent."
Yes, I forgot about that. Just like, what? Oh dear. Good.
So I've got a
Good.
note written down here. Hearing the Japanese theme made me realize that the action was always planned for that song to begin with, because the action on screen, obviously the beat to which they've been animated fits with the song. And there's a little bit where Ash opens up one of his Pokeballs because he's having a fight with this guy who is American, I think,
Yeah.
because he says some things in
Yeah.
English. But when he opens up the Pokeball, it's on a beat of the song, and it fits in the song as though it's an instrument, and it's great.
And there's one thing I want to bring up, and trying to do this whole film in order is going to be difficult.
Yes.
I just want to talk about the music quickly. 'Cause I briefly mentioned it earlier. And obviously, this is probably one of the biggest swings is the fact that, different intros. That's fine. They still go with the same idea of, well, we'll use the intro music here that we have.
Yeah.
As you say, Lewis, it doesn't quite match up the way it's supposed to. There was actually an entire album created for the first movie of Pokemon of like chart songs. One of the ones you'll probably recognize the most is "Brother, My Brother," which is
my brother. You just can't. You just have to. You just have to.
which obviously isn't in the Japanese version.
No, it's not.
And a lot of the music, which is weird to think now, because you don't change the score of a film. If you adapt an anime these days, you do not change the score. And like, I, as somebody who's watched a lot of abridged series and that growing up over the last sort of 15 years, the question comes up of like, oh, when we dub something, why don't we change the mouth flaps so that, which is when you see the characters talking, why wouldn't we change that to match the dialogue so it looks better? And it's like, well, no, you don't. You actually write the dialogue to be as close as possible to the original intent, and then but also match the mouth flaps that already exist. That's the idea, and that's how dubbing works as far as voice acting is concerned. And the reason you do it that way is because you don't want to mess with the timing of the music, because everything is designed to go together, and that's like editing is a thing that obviously it's condensed and it's things happen on a beat to give a certain feeling. So the fact that this was back in the day of just screw it, we're gonna put our own music on there because we want it to have a different feeling to it, and we lose a lot of game music, which surprised me was in here. There's a lot of tracks I was like, wait, I know this. This wasn't in the. Oh wait, this is just Route 12 or whatever. Oh, this is just a random trainer music. Awesome, I love it. And the score is, as I say, it's I enjoy it a lot more, I think.
Okay. The Japanese version you enjoy more?
Yes.
Right, okay. See, it's the opposite for me. I prefer the English version. I just feel like the music in the English version is more powerful. It just helps to make what is happening on screen hit harder, but I will admit I might be coming from it from a nostalgia point of view, because when when I was watching the Japanese version, like the soundtrack really stood out to me because I was like, this doesn't fit. But I don't know if it's because it doesn't fit because it's not what I was used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
yeah, I mean, there were a few things that weren't changed between releases. In fact, I think one of the final songs near the climax of the film was the same between releases.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that they held over. Like basically anything to do with Mew was basically the same.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, Mew's lines weren't changed at all, just like Pikachu's aren't. But yeah, so
yeah,
sorry.
It was just interesting that, you know, they'd obviously decided we're going to go in a different direction with this. We want a different score to evoke a different tone.
Yeah.
I will agree with you. Some of the ones later on do hit a lot harder in the English version. I'm not saying it's perfect either way.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I think my eventual view of this is like somewhere between the two somewhere between the two versions is a really good movie.
Yes, agreed. Definitely agreed. There are elements in both in terms of music, the extra intro, and the dub/sub where if you took the best bits of both of them, you would make a better film.
Absolutely.
You flat out would. Shall we? I want to jump ahead just a little bit ahead, but I mean, I don't want to do a blow by blow recap of the film because I imagine most people have seen it. But like one of the changes that you see between the two versions is when they attempt to leave for the island and the wharf controller is talking to them. Now in the Japanese version, it's just a typical you can't go out, like the sea is really bad. We can't let you go because there's a risk that you're going to get hurt. And it's like a normal conversation. Whereas in the English version, she starts ranting about prophets and the winds of water and ancient writings. And again, Pokemon tears reviving people.
Because a Western audience, you need to spell it out to them. You need to tell them, like, look, I don't want any surprises for you. You need to know that this is what's coming, okay? So when it happens later on, you can know it's like, oh yeah, we were told about that earlier. It's literally because, again, back in the day, it was a case of, look, this is for kids. Kids are stupid. We need to spell everything out for them every step of the way. So we'll take this one character who really doesn't say much other than it's too dangerous to cross and just give her this really prophetic line of, and back in day, the tears of Pokemon. It's like, that wasn't necessary.
So as a kid, I can't remember us saying it, but as a kid, I was probably thinking, oh, okay, right, that sounds like it fits. Whereas now as an adult, listening to that in the English version, I'm just like, wait, what? Like, it just completely threw me out of the film. And I was like, wait, what? And there's more. This happens again later on where they start talking about things that aren't in the Japanese version, and it seems like, it's because we're big dum-dums over here, apparently.
There is, to be fair, there's a lot that gets thrown in there. I mean, one of the ones that stands out to me, or stood out to me the most, is right towards the very end, and again, skipping all over the place now, because I just want to talk about themes.
No, let's do that then,
differences, rather than trying to go through the movie chronologically, because it's not going to work that way.
Let's do that.
So the big differences that stand out where they try to explain stuff to a Western audience. There's the bit where all the Pokemon are fighting each other. In the English version, he goes, I'm going to disable their special abilities. Never mentions it. They just...
Not.
This is just, we're going to beat the hell out of each other because...
Yeah.
Hand-to-hand combat because one of us is a clone, one of us is the original, and that makes one of us inferior.
Yeah, but whoever wins this fight gets to be the real one. So we're going to do it hand-to-hand.
Yeah, one of the key messages for me and the differences between the two is when they are like just punching one another into submission and there's no powers going on. The message is very, very different. In the Japanese version, they're saying about, like, it doesn't matter if they're real ones or copies. They're all alive. They're all living things. And it doesn't matter if they were created. And whereas in the English version, all she says is Pokemon aren't meant to fight like this. What can come of it?
Pokemon aren't meant to fight.
And I was just like...
Not like this.
Pokemon, like, the whole thing about Pokemon is fighting.
And weirdly enough, back in the day, back when this film got released, That line, I think, stood out to people more than anything.
Yeah.
And critics panned the film.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a critically acclaimed film anyway, and it was never going to be. Like, it's a Pokemon movie that goes through no effort to explain what Pokemon are.
No.
You're either in it or you're not.
Yeah.
Like, so critics were never going to like it, but that was the one line that stuck out there. Like, it's a show about Pokemon fighting each other that I think the message is supposed to be that fighting is bad.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. Whereas at least in the Japanese version, it ties back to that initial question from Mewtwo of, who am I? What am I? And the recurring theme of, like, I'm a clone. What does that mean for me? Am I even real? Am I alive?
Yeah. And the idea of it doesn't matter, you are all alive because you're here.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's no better, there's no worse, there's no right, there's no wrong. It's just we continue existing. And what really wound me up was the fact that, I say wound me up, what upset me maybe was watching this. I was like, I'm really enjoying the messaging. I'm really enjoying like the way it's been presented better, except from the final line from Mewtwo, which we all know as a kid. You know, it was one of the biggest moments in my life I will always remember of like the circumstances of one's birth doesn't matter. It's what you do with the gift of life that matters. And it's like, it's such a beautiful statement.
Yeah.
That didn't match the theming of the movie.
No, you're right. You're thinking about it.
Well,
and yet the theming of the Japanese movie is exactly that. And it's never given that kind of sweet tie up. It's never given that little bow on top of, boom, we nailed it. We got the point across. There it is.
To me, it kind of feels like those lines got swapped.
Yeah, I can see that.
In that, because just like you said, the English line ties up the theming of the Japanese movie, whereas the line in Japanese kind of feels like something that 4Kids were put on to spell it out for the audience. For those unaware, the line in Japanese is, "It might be best if no one knew of this incident.
Yeah.
It might be best to forget this."
That's it. They're more interested in like, okay, how do we make this canon without like ruining the series for anyone who doesn't see it?
I got that as a kid. When they reappeared at the ferry wharf with no memory of the incident, I'd worked that out.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the other bit of it as well, which is like Meowth is supposed to be the first one who has this realization of like, we're the same. There's no point in us fighting. In the English version, they look up and they have this really beautiful moment of like, yeah, you're right. We do look up at the same sky, same stars, same moon, everything. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And in this, it's just like, you're saying the moon is round?
So I've got...
Yeah, I guess it is a full moon.
It makes no... it makes no sense in the Japanese version because I've got it written down. The moon is really round tonight, you say. I'm sure it's a full moon. Talking about the moon at times like this? How poetic. How did it end up like this? Like, that's just a conversation. That doesn't tie in with what is going in. At least the English version, like Meowth, a bad guy that, is constantly causing mischief, is the one that's basically coming to the realization first that actually it doesn't matter if you're a clone of me. It doesn't matter how you were created. Look at everything we have in common. The only thing that we don't have in common is I was born and you were created. But but that doesn't matter because of all the shared things that we have. There are more reasons to get on than there is to be divided. Whereas the Japanese version is basically, it's like they're just having a drunken conversation at 2:00 in the morning on a bench.
I don't know if that's maybe a lost in translation thing, like we're not picking up on the tone of how the sentence is put across or something. But yeah, it didn't feel the same, certainly.
No, it definitely doesn't. And so just to kind of jump back a little bit, what did we think about Ash trying to come in and basically talk down Mewtwo in the two instances where he does it? One where he, just before he brings out Charizard, and then obviously running out and going, in the English version, you can't do this, I won't let you. Whereas in the Japanese version, it's unforgivable. Like, you can't do this and unforgivable. They're very different meanings in that. What I take from that. What about you two,
Lewis?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's again, I don't know if it's a translation thing with the subtitles on the copy that we watched, but in how the theming has changed overall, it doesn't seem out of place. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does a little bit. It's just very interesting to just see how you've got these two films that are, other than that initial part at the start, and this animation is exactly the same, and yet the messaging from the two feels like couldn't really be any further apart.
Yeah, they certainly. It's difficult. So, like, what would you say is the theme of the English version of the movie? Like, what's the message you're supposed to take away as a child?
I don't know. To be quite,
it's so convoluted.
To be honest with you, like if you ask me that for the Japanese version, like the obvious answer, it doesn't matter how you were created and what you were born for. It's what you do with your life ultimately.
Which again is the exact line basically that the English one wraps up with.
But the English version, I was like, when you asked that question, I was like trying to think back to when I was a kid, but I can't answer it as an adult. I don't know what the English.
Maybe the theme of the English version is it might be best to forget this.
It probably is, to be quite honest with you. There is like one thing that I do need to point out that isn't related to whether or not it's the Japanese or English version. It's a little thing that I never spotted as a kid. When all the trainers leave to depart to the island, so when they've got the invite...
Yes! I only saw this today!
The Firo?
The Firo!
There's a Pokemon trainer that drowns at sea that doesn't make it.
Because the guy sets off on a Pidgeot.
Yes.
And then in the next frame, they're like, here's the Gyarados, here's the Dugong, and here's a Firo flying in the back. And then when he lands, there's no Firo anywhere. There's no Firo on that island. And I literally saw it for the first time today, and I was like, has that animation error always been there?
Apparently so. There's a trainer that just didn't make it across. Also, what
I didn't even notice that today.
It's something that I never noticed as a kid, and it was only when I was. And I think it's because like when you're watching a dub, you really are paying attention to what is going on. So you can mirror up what's being said with what is going on the screen. So there's just this Firo just absolutely departing. One thing that the English version did have that the Japanese version didn't is the whole Jesse and James Viking boat thing.
Vikings are they're mostly in Minnesota.
Just brilliant. And I didn't get that as a kid. It's just like, what?
No, absolutely not. Because we're not American. No. So we missed the Minnesota Viking reference.
Which is absolutely just fantastic. I absolutely just loved it. So,
whereas the original kind of joke of them cosplaying as that was just a case of like, yeah, we're Vikings. Storms are easy for us.
Yeah, we'll get you across.
We sail in storms all the time. And it's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes... And Jesse and James are weird in this. They kind of...
Yeah.
They're still comic relief, but not that fourth wall breaking comic relief we're used to.
No.
Yeah, their humor is very different in Japanese. If they do puns, maybe we just don't understand them. But they're very punny in English.
I mean, we've spoken about Jesse and James before being like a Greek chorus, where they're like part of the film, but also your audiences, they will talk directly with the audience about what is happening in the film. That's completely lost in their original. It's just not present. Like the whole, I think there's even a joke at the end where they're like, oh yeah, we're not blasting off again. And that's not here in the Japanese version. There's loads of stuff that's just missing from Jesse and James. And I don't necessarily dislike it. It was just noticeably different.
Yeah.
I think Jesse and James are really weird in this because when I saw it as a kid, obviously Jesse and James just seem to be in a lot more episodes than they are in the modern anime. And maybe that's just me thinking back and, that isn't how it was. But in this, they don't really do a lot. And it's weird because they're just up to their usual antics and everything. And then it's only towards the end where they suddenly have a realization along with Meowth that, oh, this is wrong. Like, this isn't right. And yet it feels like you could remove them from the plot, and especially in the Japanese version, remove them from the plot, and nothing really changes because of the message is different from the Meowth and its clone. And
that's it. I mean, nobody even notices they're on the island.
No, you're right. Actually, that's a good point. No one does.
Nobody.
I think,
like, even
well,
Mewtwo.
apart from Ash.
Even no. Wait.
No,
he does.
Oh,
He
he's
does.
in
You're right.
the thing at the bottom. Yes.
He goes after his
Yes,
Pikachu,
you're right.
and he finds them in the clone
That's it.
room.
And he's like, I don't have
But
time for you
otherwise-
today.
Yeah, they're just there to set up the clone room, I think, really, and do the who's that Pokemon gambit.
Which is wrong in the English version.
Yes.
How
yes,
How
it
do
is.
they
Yes.
get that? How do you get that wrong?
Scyther into Alakazam.
Yes.
Now, what was interesting was I was like, wait, was that like a translation issue? Is the Japanese name for Scyther really close to the Japanese name for Alakazam? But again, talking about like how they dub things and they'll watch the movie through and try and match the lip flaps. No, somebody just messed that up.
Because, like,
Yeah.
surely you'd go and loot. It's that typical who's that Pokemon. You can tell by the silhouette who that Pokemon is. I'm a bit more forgiving of the fact that they call Pidgeot wrong in the English version. But they call it Pidgeotto rather than Pidgeot. I'm a bit more forgiving of that because they do look similar. But a silhouette of Scyther and Alakazam next to one another, you could tell, even if you don't know what Pokemon are, you could tell they are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it's got one's got knife hands and the other one's got spoons.
Knifey spoony.
Knifey spoon. I've seen you play knifey spoony before.
But I think the one takeaway from this is I don't know about you guys. I was absolutely blown away when it was revealed that Mewtwo's assistant was Nurse Joy. I just didn't see it
Oh
coming.
my goody
I
good
was
God.
like, what?
Oh, right. I'll tell you what.
What?
They're talking about earlier on about the Japanese being, or at least Japanese media being more perverted than English
Yeah.
media. Brock has always been borderline. Let's face facts.
Yes.
Brock is a bit of a creeper.
He is.
But he says something in here that really upset me, which was like, oh, both of them look better, especially when wet. I'm like,
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, God,
What? No, that's disgusting.
Actually, he mentioned all three. He said Nurse Joy,
Officer Jenny and Voyager.
and Voyager, yes.
Oh,
Although she's Constable Jenny. Well, she's not even Jenny in the Japanese, but she's a constable.
yep.
Oh, right. So, have we got anything else we want to say about this film? Any of the topics or themes? Are we kind of wrapping it up there?
Go on.
I mean, the Mew versus Mewtwo fight still looked really
Still
cool.
fantastic.
You know, those pink and blue energies battling around.
Yeah, that like, even now at 33 years old, I'm like, oh, this is what I live for. This is amazing. Like, especially when Mew just
Yeah.
doesn't fight back to start with, and then the ball.
Oh, well. So, Mew does this little bit, right, where Mewtwo blasts off a massive energy ball, and off flies Mewtwo and the energy ball backwards into the clouds, and everybody's like, oh no, what's happened with Mew? And then Mew's like, nah, bro, and just smacks it back at Mewtwo and destroys it.
I absolutely
So,
love that.
Little bit of trivia for you. That was the first showing of Shadow Ball ever. It wasn't even available in the games yet.
Wait, that's Shadow Ball.
It's supposed to be Shadow Ball.
Well, because at this point, they were revealing a couple of Gen 2 things. They had Togepi at the time. They showed Donphan off.
They did.
in the starting fight.
And in the English version of this, because we didn't get the Amber or I story, we got Pikachu's adventure or Pikachu's holiday
Oh, with Snubble.
with Schnubble and Marl.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Marl
yeah.
was in that one.
Marl was in it, and it was the first time we found out it was actually called Marl and not Peekaboo.
Peekaboo.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, one thing that I do need to point out that just ties back into the whole differences between the two is during that fight between Mew and Mewtwo in the English version, Mewtwo says that he wants to prove it's superior, whereas in the Japanese version, it's I am the real one. So again, just focusing on that, that clone, and it doesn't matter if you're a clone or not. Whereas the English version proving it's superior, again, another mixed message. Doesn't really tie into what is Mewtwo. What is Mewtwo's end goal in the English version?
To be the most powerful in the world.
To be the because because like there's an idea that he's going to become the number one trainer, but also the number one Pokemon to prove that he's the best, that because even though he's a clone, he is subject to no one.
Yeah.
And in the Japanese version, it's almost suggested that, like, no, I'm going to burn this world down and build a new one for people like me, because I'm not like you, and humans are filthy and disgusting and are everything that's wrong with the world. And Pokemon have chosen to subjugate themselves to them. So you're as bad as they are. So I'm going to burn everything down. I'm going to send out my hurricane that's just going to drown the world. Archie before Archie was a thing. And I'm gonna go again. It's an interesting thought. Another weird bit of trivia for you. There was an event special Mewtwo that was released with the move Hurricane because of this film.
Oh, that is a nice little fun fact. Have you got any others for us, or is we like exhausting the well here?
I don't know. I can't remember if I said the other one that I was thinking of a second ago, but I can't remember what it is now. So unless I just said a minute ago, fun little bit of trivia for you, and then said a thing, I'm waffling.
Oh, okay. I've got a fun fact for you about it. There is a remake of this on Netflix called Pokemon Evolutions.
Is that the definitive version of this film?
I don't know, because I've not watched it all the way through. I've just kind of skipped through it.
Right. I think we might have to watch it and find out at this point.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of came to the conclusion earlier that, somewhere between these two is the perfect movie.
Yeah.
But so here you go, Ben. If you're gonna get your daughter to watch one of these in the future,
interesting.
Right, we're gonna put aside the thing of like, it's a sub and she won't watch subs. Okay, she's already into anime and is happy watching subs.
Yeah.
Which one do you make her watch?
If the dub situation wasn't a problem, Japanese version definitely. I think it just tells a better, more coherent story from start to finish, with the exception of a handful of things where it is better in the English version. But I'd have to have a look at Pokemon, the remake, and see if that is the better version between the two and it takes the best bit. I don't know. But the dub version, it just tells a more coherent story, I feel.
The sub version or the dub version?
Oh, sorry, the dub version, the Japanese version.
So that's the sub version.
Oh, yeah, sub, sorry.
The one with subtitles.
Yeah, sorry, I got them mixed up for some reason.
You're all good, mate. I just wanted to clarify.
The Japanese version with the subs.
Nice.
I think I'd have to agree if and when I have children in the future.
So it's an interesting one because I don't know, right? So I appreciate the Japanese version now, knowing the differences between this and the dub version. I think, weirdly enough, there's a lot of, although I've complained about, they had to spell a lot of things out, I don't think I'd have got the film really as a kid if they didn't spell a lot of it out.
It depends on what age you are. It's like,
true.
I think flashy
the
Pokemon.
Japanese one is still the better story.
Yeah.
I think it's still told better. But I definitely think there's just some bits missing.
Yeah, like, brother, my brother. That is just a banging tune. Absolutely amazing tune. And the intro, the intro, I remember being so hyped in the cinema when the intro music kicks in, when Ash is battling that trainer, and just being like, oh, this is an event. This is something that I will never forget. Whereas I didn't get, like, watching the dub version, just like, the sub version, and the music kicking in, and I'm just there going, I'm not hyped, I'm just really confused right now. What is going on?
That is absolutely fair. So I think that wraps up the main section of this podcast for this week. No other thoughts on the movie?
No, not from me. What about
I think we've covered it.
If you haven't watched the Japanese version of Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back, check it out. It's actually a good time. If you want to go even deeper, check out that prequel radio drama. There is actually a version of it that's completely subtitled on YouTube. Worth watching. Good couple of hours, but check it out. I enjoyed that a lot.
Right, okay. I'm going to have to check that out. Brilliant. Lewis, have you got any social media or anything that you want to plug?
If anybody wants to take a look at something that I've done, go and check out the Captain Fidget YouTube channel.
Nicely done.
Thank
you very much for joining us this week, Lewis, and we'll probably have you on again at some point.
Definitely.
Well, I look forward to it. It's been a pleasure, lads.
No worries. Take care.
Bye-bye.
It's that time again where we continue watching Pokemon Journeys and discuss the episodes. So we've got 3 more this week. We are coming towards the end of Pokemon Journeys. So I think we've got 3 more after this. Is that right? Or is it 6 more after these?
No, there's 6 more.
6 more. So we're on to the...
However, the next 3 are the main ones, and then there's a bunch of filler to see out the end of the season.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's it. Okay, right. Well, I'm looking forward to the next
Not bad
episodes.
filler.
No? Okay, right. That's fine then. That's fine. If it's good filler, I don't mind it. So this one is the first one is episode 40, a cracking raid battle. Do you want to tell the listeners what this episode's all about?
Zapdos. It's about Zapdos.
Oh, this is
Zapdos
absolutely
is here.
amazing. Like, it's just a thunderstorm. Basically, like, the setup is there's a thunderstorm coming in, and straight away I'm like, is this Zapdos? And they basically waste no time just telling you that, yeah, it's Zapdos. Zapdos is coming in. Okay,
Really,
right.
The bit I actually liked was Go calls it.
Yes.
It's not the professor's like, oh,
No.
there's a storm cloud here. It's likely Zapdos is about. It's like, no, there's a storm cloud. There's life energy. There's life energy coming up again. Because he's like, oh, there's life energy showing. And Go's like, no. It's Zapdos. I think that's Zapdos. We should go find Zapdos. And he's like really smart in this. He clearly his research comes to the forefront in this one.
So that was one of the points. So there's 2 points I wanted to make there. One is, now that you've pointed out life energy, I think this is going to be something that I keep noticing now. Whereas before this episode, like if life energy had been mentioned on episodes and like it has in this one, I've completely zoned out or just not focused on it because I'm just like, oh, it's just like mumbo jumbo. Like, oh, like whenever you see it in a TV show or a film, it's like, oh, it's quantum, and it's just a scientific word that they think they can attach to anything just to go, oh, well, look at this. It's all scientific or whatever. Because that's a real word. But so life energy, like, apparently is a big thing. But also, yes, like, it makes sense that Go would be the one to go, that's Zapdos, because he's that obsessed with completing the Pokedex that surely he would be researching Pokemon that he's not even caught.
Mm-hmm. He's a big nerd, and we love him for it.
Yeah, speaking of being a nerd, it gets dead philosophy.
It does. I love this. So I will pose the question to you: which came first, the Pokemon or the Pokemon egg?
Ooh, so neither. Neither is my answer. But if it was the chicken and the egg, neither came first, because like over time animals evolve and develop and eggs and stuff and whatnot, whereas in this, Pokemon and eggs, I don't know, because apparently Pokemon don't give birth to eggs, they just appear because of life energy, apparently, which is something I've learned.
Yeah, so that's why you'll always hear, the old man at the daycare is like, I don't know what happened, an egg is here.
It's like,
I just found this.
I thought it was just either the Pokemon were dead prudish and were just like waiting until the old people were asleep, or the old person just had terrible eyesight.
Nope, they just appear randomly. So I have 2 answers to this question.
Okay.
You can either look at it as the egg comes first, because in like the Sinnoh folktales and that, it said that at the start of the universe, in the swirling chaos,
oh yes,
an egg appeared and that egg hatched into Arceus. So the Pokemon egg definitely came first. Or you can look at it as Pokemon came first because eggs weren't introduced till Generation 2.
Oh, I like that idea. Oh, so it's one of those questions that doesn't have a definitive answer. It's in
the 50-50 choice. It could be either.
It could be either. So jumping back to the episode, the Ash and Go decide they're going to track down this Zapdos, which, like, yeah, this sounds like fun and games until you realize this is a legendary Pokemon. And if there's one thing this episode does, it shows you the power of legendary Pokemon, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
like
just
it tears through them when they finally get hold of it.
Like it takes the Ash and Go teaming up with Team Rocket to take it, to even attempt to like battle it. And what a coincidence as well that their little Pachinko machine just happens to give them ground type. Do you think the Pachinko machine kind of reads the situation and goes, okay, the best Pokemon for this situation are, or it's just potluck?
I think it's just potluck, and the writers just have great fun with it.
Oh yeah, as a writer, it'd be fantastic, because then you don't have to write around the typical thing of in the past where it was, it's always Ekans and Coughing and then Weezing and Arbok and whatnot. Whereas in this, it's like, okay, right, what do we want to introduce? What Pokemon haven't we seen in a while, or what can we give, add a little bit of humor to? Speaking of humor,
Rhydon,
why is it attacking the walls?
because it's using Horn Drill, which is a 30% accurate move.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
I was watching it with a mate earlier and I was wetting myself. What's so funny? I was like, it's using Horn Drill. It's like, I don't get it. It's like, it's an Oko move. It's 30% accurate. It was never going to hit.
Right, okay. That makes way more sense now. And Stunfisk's water gun is lackluster. I don't know if there's a reason behind that.
I have no idea.
No, okay. So that's just a little bit of fun that they're having. So they have to work together to take down this Zapdos in a raid battle. Apparently, a raid battle, it's lost a bit of meaning, hasn't it? Whereas in Sword and Shield, like a raid battle is you are a team of 4 taking on a Dynamax or Gigantamax Mon. Although actually, raid battles in Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go. I was going to say it takes the Pokemon Go
Yeah.
approach where it's just like a bunch of people get together and beat up one Pokemon.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Okay, there you go. Stand corrected. So one of the highlights for me is Pikachu riding Stunfisk. And then...
Yeah, so I was like looking at my phone whilst watching this, and I just hear James call out, Pikachu, get on Stunfisk's back. And I'm like
what?
And I look up, and Pikachu's just surfing on Stunfisk. I'm like, how has this episode got to here?
I don't know. It jumps between serious and just like Team Rocket's typical. And it always feels like when Team Rocket is involved in an episode, they can get away with a lot more like hijinks and just being daft, which I'm all for.
The one thing that did wind me up about this battle is the fact that before they go in, goes like, I'm going to use Flygon. Flygon makes the most sense.
And
then he uses Raboot.
Raboot. Like,
and then even like after they fail the raid battle and get absolutely creamed, and Pikachu gets overwhelmed by Zapdos' Thunderbolt, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
Pikachu gets overwhelmed by the Thunderbolt. And then like Team Rocket are like, oh, because Zapdos is there. But you know what we really want is that Pikachu.
Yeah,
that lowly mouse. That's more important to us. That's what our boss will like more.
Yes.
So we're gonna fight you, and we're gonna let go upstairs and have a one-on-one. He then
what?
uses the Flygon.
Yeah.
It gets hit by a Thunderbolt, and it's like, oh no, it's all over. It's like we've literally established not only is Flygon the right choice for this fight, but it doesn't affect ground-type Pokemon.
We've literally
just done that.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like not even 5 minutes ago, 2 ground-type Pokemon absorbed electric type attacks, and the Stunfisk looked really happy about it.
Give me that.
But where's the Flygon? Apparently, just for whatever reason.
I don't like that.
No, I don't like electric type attacks. So the whole Raboot thing. So surely the reason he used it at the start of the raid is to justify the end where it finally lands an attack, right?
I guess, but like they established that within the same fight. Like they already do the use double kick. Oh, you missed.
Yeah, true.
So it just seems silly.
A little bit. So like Raboot leans Blaze Kick, absolutely fantastic. Zapdos hits the ground, and like let's be honest here, right? Go catches that Zapdos.
Go caught it. That was straight up caught.
There's absolutely, it's just BS that a Thundercloud destroys the Pokeball. But the question is that just pure happenstance, or did Zapdos control the lightning to free itself?
No, Zapdos breaks out. Zapdos does break out. The lightning comes from inside the Pokeball and bursts it open, and then the Thundercloud appears.
Oh, does it? Oh, I missed that. Oh, right. Okay. I thought the right. Okay. So
yeah, the end of this episode all kind of just happens.
Yeah.
Because like Team Rocket get beaten off screen.
Yeah, because they just come flying out of nowhere.
Like they're winning. They've got 2 ground type Pokemon against Pikachu, which I'm annoyed at Ash for still using Pikachu in that fight.
Like,
he's got other Pokemon with him.
Yeah.
He should switch, but he doesn't. And then they're like, haha, we're actually winning. And you just see Ash go, what, you 2 beat me?
Yeah.
He smirks and then off screen beats him.
Yes.
And then what's the other? Right, I actually made notes on this episode because it wound me up.
Go on. Read through them.
Goes Flygon has the worst moveset.
So what has it got? I know it's got Draco Meteor.
It's got Dragon Claw, Dragon Breath, and Draco Meteor.
Nice diversity there, Go.
What are you doing, Go? Sort it out.
Oh, dear.
But yes, for all intents and purposes, Go does catch it, but it then breaks out, summons a thundercloud, and then pummels Pikachu with lightning. Absolutely, like, the mouse is scorched and out cold on the ground, and then stands up like, yeah, woo, I'm recharged. That was great.
Like, what?
And it turns out all these electric Pokemon are coming to the power plant to get recharged by Zapdos. And it's like, but we just had a raid battle where you beat Pikachu by using Thunderbolt on it.
Yep.
What's the difference?
Don't know. Right.
What's the rules here? Somebody explain them to me.
Okay, right. I'm jumping ahead to the next episode a little bit, but do you think there was 2 sets of writers for this episode? Like, writers for the first half, where before Zapdos ends up on the roof, and then writers for the second half, where Zapdos was on the roof, and the writers at no point decided to communicate with one another.
To actually talk with each other.
No, that's what I'm honestly thinking. Because are you done with this episode?
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
Like, we explained everything that happened.
Yeah,
like,
and the reason I'm making that joke about the 2 sets of writers is because in the next episode, it's another one of those episodes where it's split in 2.
Yeah, and Team Rocket, because I was like, oh, it's a Team Rocket episode.
Yeah.
Great. I can't wait for a... Oh, no, wait, I can see where this is going.
Yeah. Like, I make notes on these episodes as well, and I've only got 2 points for the first half, because it is literally just Meowth is unwell, so the team find out that they've got loads of recordings of Pikachu, and so because Meowth is unwell, they decide, okay, let's let us, Jesse and James, figure out what Pikachu is saying, and they basically just...
They dub over Pikachu.
They dub over Pikachu.
Because apparently Wobbuffet has his own drone.
Yes.
That nobody else was aware of. That somehow automatically follows Pikachu wherever it goes.
Just like, what is this episode? Like, I don't know what else to say about it. I was just like, I'm watching it thinking, I have no notes for this. I don't know what else.
I've got one note, and that's when James does his. He uses the word "pee" as if he was a Smurf. You know how the Smurfs were like, we'll use it as I use it as I use it as you, I use it as the word Smurf, but also just randomly we'll just replace a word with Smurf.
Oh, this is just
it's ridiculous. It's such a stupid part of this episode.
It is.
Yeah. I do like the fact that they're like, oh my god, Pikachu cares about us.
Oh yeah, that was adorable, wasn't it? Because they were on about like, was it that Pikachu was asking about them or?
Well, yeah, they blast off.
Yes.
And then they've got an image of Pikachu who kind of like smiles and it's like, Pika. And they're like, oh my god, I can hear it. It's saying, oh, I hope you guys are well. See you next time.
Dear, it's just interesting. Second half of the episode, I've got a few more notes because even though it's another episode that just isn't connected to anything, but at least something happens in this, I guess. And that they find a submerged marsh stomp, which doesn't look like it's submerged. It looks like it's no clipping through the ground. Like it doesn't look
perfect explanation.
It doesn't look like, because I looked at it, I was like, is this like an animation error or something? Because the marsh stomp literally just looks like they've just chopped off part of it and then placed it on top of the rocky formation. It doesn't look like it's submerged.
So in theory, it is like gone into a muddy pond puddle thing, gone up to its neck, and then it's dried out, and it's just stood there. And some of the faces in this are great, but the faces of the marsh stomp are amazing.
They're fantastic.
There's not a lot else going on here.
So, there's not. I've got a few notes, though. Go actually uses initiative and tries to use a Pokeball, which doesn't work.
For some reason,
okay. The team then try to carry water in their mouths.
Well, they try it on a leaf.
Yes,
and
that was it.
Ash drops it. They try and use Sobble, but Sobble is so freaked out at the situation and just the look it's getting from this marsh stomp that it's just like, nope, nah, I'm good.
Nope. Oh, and then they decide to put water in their mouth and take it over. And the only reason it doesn't work is because Ash talks.
But instead of going, we'll just not talk, they're like, nope, that clearly won't work. It's not possible for us to walk from here over to there without talking. Not possible. Can't do it.
So, and they just get lucky that a Ludicolo turns up. It's just doing its usual Ludicolo. and they attempt to communicate with the Ludicolo, and I just love the fact that they want it to use rain dance, but he ends up using Sunny Day. Just the worst thing you could do in that situation.
This whole episode just like it feels like filler. You know what I mean? The last time they did this 2-part episode, we had the Magikarp jump and the Slow King. Now the Slow King episode wasn't my favorite, but it was at least funny. This I didn't think was all that funny.
There was a handful of moments that were I think the one funny part that stands out to me is when they're trying to persuade Ludicolo, and Ludicolo then spots the submerged Marshtomp, and it just lingers on Ludicolo's face for like 10 seconds. It feels like an eternity, and all of a sudden it's like, I know what I need to do now, and then he goes off and dances, and then the episode ends where it begun, where they come back the next day, and now there's a load of Marshtomp
everybody's
submerged. I was like, right, okay, so that was an episode, wasn't it? It's just, I was like, right, okay, I get that series have to have filler episodes. I get it, but not this late on, right?
You'd hope not, but yeah, it was a little bit. It was a miss for me, this one.
Yeah, it had the moments, but it's definitely an episode that you can skip. Like, you could skip and lose nothing. I don't think it contributes to any overarching character arcs, or Go doesn't even catch any mon, so it's not even like that's going to come back and affect. It's nothing really happens, which is a little bit disappointing, because the next episode is when things all start to happen.
Down.
Yeah.
So like the next 4 episodes are basically the story.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, they go off to Galar.
Yeah.
And we see Rose.
Yes.
The first time? I don't think so. I think we've seen him before.
we have seen him briefly at the tournament, at one of the tournaments that where
Leon
was.
Yeah, of course, because he introduced everything, didn't he?
Yeah, but that's it. So Rose is hardly in it, and then it's the first time we get to see Elena, isn't it?
Oleana? I think so. Yeah.
Oleana, is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. So they're investigating the core, absorbing Galar particles. Meanwhile, it jumps over to Ash, and the Dynamax wristband starts to glow, and the professor explained that they don't fully understand the process. Is that the same as in the game? They don't understand?
Yeah. So because they know that the Galar particles are Sonia is investigating whether the Galar particles are linked to the Darkest Day.
Ah, right.
Because that's kind of, this is something that happened in our region that hasn't happened in other regions. We have Dynamax, other regions don't. Maybe there's a connection here. Rose, I think, is the only one who really knows that, it's Eternatus and the Galar particles.
Yeah.
Or Eternatus that gives off the Galar particles, which would make sense because, he's probably instigated all of the, stadiums being on hotspots for Dynamax
More than
energy.
likely, yeah. Never thought about that, but that does make sense.
So, yes, he has Eternatus in the egg, but it is leaking Galar particles, which are shooting all over Galar and causing Pokemon to Dynamax. And kind of lose their minds a little bit and go on rampages, which we do see in the post-game of Sword and Shield.
Nothing like this, though. In the post-game, it's just a brief conversation between characters, and then it's, you're in a normal raid battle, basically. Whereas in this, it brings a bit of character to Pokemon that are Dynamaxing, and it feels like they're in pain, I guess, or like you say, like just not fully aware of their, fully with it.
Yeah, they do just become kaijus, effectively.
Pretty much, yeah. So the thing that really got me on this episode, like hyped, was when they're traveling on the train, and then a thick mist like descends on the train. I was like, okay, right. I know exactly where we're going now. If you've played the games, you know where this is going. And then, obviously, they wander into the forest. I mean, they don't wander into the forest. They chase a Bunnelby who has stolen something. So it's a bit of a coincidence. It's Scone of all things.
A scone or a scone?
I say Scone.
Which you say Scone. I also say scone.
Okay, that's the right way then. Forever on this podcast, it'll be known as a scone.
There you go.
So they end up in the forest, get separated, and I'm all for this. At this point, I know what is coming. I know where this story is leading us. It's a bit of a shame that we haven't got, Hop. Gloria is the female main character, and I don't know what the male main character is. It's a bit of a shame that we don't get them, unfortunately, but it seems like Ash and Go are probably going to be, and I don't know, I've not seen the next couple of episodes yet. Ash and Go are fulfilling their roles, aren't they? One of them's going to get Zamazenta, one of them's going to get Zacian, right? I'd imagine.
Git is a strong.
Sorry, I don't mean catch, but like,
okay.
But
you don't know, it's Go.
Well,
Go's technically got to catch both of them, right?
Well, again, if he wants to complete his Pokedex, he's going to have to, isn't he?
Well, no, because it's not in the Pokedex.
Well, no, you're right. It's not, because they try to scan it, don't they?
Mhm.
And it's just like, the Pokedex is like, I don't recognize this Pokemon. And much like the games as well, I love the references to the games here, where Ash challenges the Zacian to a battle, and like the game at the start, it just does nothing. And what I like is Go goes the other way. So Ash is obviously, I want to battle. That's a strong Pokemon. I want to battle it. Whereas Go does his usual thing of, I want to try and catch it.
So throw a ball first.
Throw a ball first. It's a Pokemon that you don't recognize, hoping that you'll catch it. And a Pokeball, not even an Ultra Ball or a Quick Ball, a Pokeball. And again, it's nothing really happens. And then the next couple of moments are very much just setting up what is going to come over the next few episodes outside the slumbering. Is it slumbering wield?
Yes, wield as in like wielding a sword and shield.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Which I didn't figure out until today.
Oh right, I've always the way that it's spelled doesn't feel like how it should be spoken.
No.
I don't know why. But Go bumps into Professor Sonia, who we'd previously met a few episodes ago.
Who's not a professor yet.
She's not a professor. No, you're absolutely right. Whereas Ash is trying to stop one of the rampaging Pokemon. And Leon rocks up to help out, and the music that was a take. I was like, oh, here we go. The music in this, when like the series has been great for music. But for me, it's when the game music kicks in. And you're like, okay, right, something is going down here, and I want to know what happens. And basically, the end of this episode is just set up for what is going to be coming over the next few episodes, it seems, where...
Yeah, Ash is off with Leon, and Ash is off with Leon trying to, like, battle all the Dynamax Pokemon to get them to calm down, and Go is off with Sonia trying to investigate the Darkest Day, because apparently that might help things.
Yep. So we are very much getting I've not seen the next couple of episodes, but I'd imagine they're not going to divert too much from the game in terms of, figuring out what's causing the Dynamax phenomenon. Zacian and Zamazenta turning up to help out against Eternatus once Leon fails to beat it. I'd imagine we're going down the same route, but I think I've mentioned on this podcast before, the in Pokemon Sword and Shield, the part where you battling Eternatus, nothing works, and then Zacian and Zamazenta turn up. It turns into a raid battle. The music is kicking in. Like it's probably my most favorite part of any Pokemon game, maybe outside of finding Red at the top of Mount Silver. That might just top it, but
That's fair.
I cannot wait to see this in the anime. I just can't wait. It's going to be how I'd imagine, what I was imagining the video game being like in Sword and Shield when you hit this part.
And it's interesting because most other times when they've done it's the story of the games, but in the anime. I think Sun and Moon, they did do it at the end of the first season, actually. Much in the same way as they're doing now. They kind of did the story with Lily's mum going crazy and going off into ultra space. They did that at the end of the first season. But I think in X and Y, the whole Lysander bit wasn't until right at the very end.
Really?
So, yeah.
So it feels very... I was going to say it feels like... Because I know there's a series after this called Pokemon Master Journeys, is it?
There's Master Journeys, and then the one that is now showing for the first time in the UK is Ultra Journeys, I think, which is the third season of this, which is the final one.
Okay. So, right, because my thought was, maybe there's two arcs, and the first arc is about the whole thing with Eternatus and stuff like that, and the second arc would be about the master couple. I can't remember what the name of it is. But actually, I'm a bit unsure where they're going to go in the second series then. Is it just the build up to Leon? Like, and we wrap up the Eternatus stuff this series. I don't know. It's just a bit like I love the fact that it's all concluding that story, but I would have liked a lot more Galar in this series.
Yeah, I understand that. More
than we got. It feels like there's been the odd things here and there, and other than Leon, a brief conversation with Sonya and Chairman Rose a little bit, and B, we've not really had anything around Galar, and obviously the Dynamaxing and a couple of exhibition matches with Leon, but we've not really had a lot around Galar.
No, but at the same time, remember a couple of weeks ago we did like the spin-off shows. I say a couple of weeks ago, it was a fair while back now. Like Galar has had more of the spin-off shows than anything. So like Hop hasn't showed up at all in this series.
No.
But he was a very big part of Twilight Rings, which was their like shorter anime that they did for Galar specifically. So yes and no. I like the direction they've gone with this series.
Agree.
More so than, and again, we've said it before, I prefer it to let's just follow the game story all the way through.
No, I agree with that.
Battle every gym. Random thought that I've just had, and I wonder if you agree with this. Do you think they changed up the formula for the anime now so that when the games adjusted to open world, it wasn't such a shock? Is that a stretch? Am I stretching there? Because they kind of changed up the formula in Sun and Moon.
Part of me thinks like that does make sense, but from a company perspective, I don't think they really care because it's not like one of them is canon compared to the other one. They're just two sets of events that follow similar paths with similar, elements, but it's not like, okay, we need to make it so that people know that the games are canon and the anime sits alongside of it. It's like you could watch the anime or you could watch the games or you could do both, and it really doesn't matter because you look at them going, yeah, I know that they're not linked. I don't think that's the case, but we don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
All right, we're going to have to wrap this section up because this might be our longest podcast yet.
I dread to think. So, Conor, are you up for playing a game?
Let's do it. Let's speed run it. Let's go.
Perfect. In front of me, I have 3 Pokemon, 3 Pokedex entries each. But Conor, can you spot the fake entry? We're going to start with Zacian. So, I think I say that differently, but I'm rolling with it. So, Pokedex entry number 1. Known as a legendary Pokemon, this Pokemon absorbs metal particles, transforming them into a weapon it uses to battle. Pokedex entry number 2. Zacian attacks with swift and precise movements. It strikes enemies with captivating beauty using a sword born from the hopes of the people of Galar. And the third and final one. Able to cut down anything with a single strike, it became known as the Fairy King's Sword, and it inspired awe in friend and foe alike.
It's the first one.
Why do you think that?
Because I don't think it absorbs metal. I don't think that's right.
Okay, you're wrong. It's number 2.
Really?
Apparently absorbs metal particles, transforming it into a weapon. Don't quite know how that works because in the game you literally give it the rusted sword.
Yeah, that was my thinking. I was like, give it the rusted sword. It doesn't. Oh, okay.
Apparently
interesting.
Not. Apparently not. Right, next one. Zamazenta. This Pokemon slept for aeons while in the form of a statue. It was asleep for so long, people forgot it ever existed. Second one. Its ability to deflect any attack led to it being known as the Fighting Master's Shield. It was feared and respected by all. Finally, this Pokemon has slumbered for a long time. Some myths claim that it's Zacian's younger sister. Others say the two are rivals.
I think it's the first one again because they're not statues. They're not the statues. They're ghosts in the slumbering weald, not the statues.
Okay, so I've got down that it's number 3. The Pokemon slumbered for a long time.
Of course you have.
Of course I have. So that's a 0 for 2 so far. So the final Pokemon, if we've gone for Zacian and Zamazenta, what do you think the last one is?
I mean, I'm going to say Eternatus.
It's Stunfisk.
Of course.
The trio. Its skin is very hard, so it is unhurt even if stepped on by sumo wrestlers. It smiles when transmitting electricity. Second Pokedex entry. Thanks to bacteria that lived in the mudflats with it, this Pokemon developed the organs it uses to generate electricity. The third and final one. Most people fail to spot the bright yellow exclamation mark at the tip of its tail, as it is usually buried too deeply in mud.
The third one?
Are you sure?
Fairly certain on that one.
You're correct. So well done. You got 1 out of 3, which means I have to quiz you again next week.
Yeah, I'm still annoyed about this Amazenta thing. Like, I don't... Because I know the statues it's talking about.
Yeah,
It's the ones
yeah.
that B uncovers.
Yes.
And they're just statues.
They're just statues, yeah. Like, a lot of the statues in the Galar region aren't even of the dogs. It's of a person holding a sword and shield. Like, a person, the king. So, yeah. So, 1 out of 3. Well done on it. I think we've got a really quick question from Rising Phoenix. If you created your own evil team, what would be its name and purpose?
It would be Team Popper.
Oh.
And we would be... our goal would be to stop the poor breeding of Pokemon. So people who are just like overly breeding Pokemon to get the best one and then just like boxing or releasing a bunch of them. Like our goal would be to stop that. Because like in the real world, poppy farms and stuff like that exist and they're a real problem. So I can only imagine people who are like breeding for shinies and stuff like that. I think that would be a real problem within the Pokemon universe.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, and actually, no, you're absolutely right. That would be a problem. For me, my evil team. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it's. Team Gym. There we go. Let's just call it Team Gym. Let's not. No, Team Challenge is what we're going to call it. And in every city, my evil team is going to create a rival gym, much like there is 2 gyms in Saffron City, because it's pointed out that Sabrina's gym came along and it was able to beat the fighting type gym. Therefore, it became the number 1 gym in that city and recognized by the Pokemon League. So I would create, multiple gyms in each city in order to undermine the current gym leaders, get them booted out, and then once I've got all 8 gyms in the region locked down, well, then I can start to charge people for different perks in order to battle us. Oh, you're coming in with 3 Pokemon? Well, for an extra $50 Pokemon dollars, you can have a 4th Pokemon and start to make money from it.
I like that a lot. We do have another question as well.
Oh, okay.
From Taylor Maglio. I
Yes.
apologize if you've said your last name wrong. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, how are they going to incorporate trainers in the open world areas? In Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus, they dodged the idea entirely. So, how do you think they'll do it?
So, there are a couple of overworld trainers in Legends Arceus, but it's post-game, I believe. It's the 3 sisters. Yeah, and they just kind of stand around. You have to approach them. I personally don't want that. I don't want it where you approach them. What I would like is, and I'm thinking of this for when I eventually nuzlocke the game and randomize it, is I would love, you're just wandering through an open world and, trainers maybe just ride up to you on bikes and challenge you, or some of them, ride around, and if you get into their spotline, then you're forced to battle. That's how I'd like to see it implemented. What about you?
So I will say, in Legends Arceus, the sisters have like a proximity.
Oh,
so
do
if
they?
you come within a certain radius of them, then they do challenge you. So I think that's really how it'll be implemented. Much like yourself, though, I don't want people just standing in places.
Nah.
I would like people to be... as much as I've said, I want the Pokemon to feel alive, I'd like the people to feel alive as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love them to be doing their own thing and be like, hey, you're a trainer, I'm a trainer. Let's do a battle.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And we saw I say a little bit, we saw the bare minimum of that in Sword and Shield in the wild area, where you could see people riding around. There was supposed to be other people playing the game or something like that. It didn't work, unfortunately. But like, they've proved that they can have NPCs riding around, so that can be done. So let's take it the next step and have the trainers roaming around, and if they spot you, then time for a Pokemon battle.
Yep, sounds about right.
I'd be happy with that. If you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube or emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com. And you know what? Challenge. The next question, because we've never had a question at the Gmail account, the next person to email in a question is guaranteed to get it asked on here, as long as it's like slightly Pokemon or podcast related. So, Connor, what have you got coming up?
I've got a video in the works at the moment about. Oh God, what's it about? It was in referencing to the most recent trailer about the Herba Mystica, looking into the Herba Mystica and what that is referencing to in real world.
Oh, okay. Right. I love your theory videos. Keep them coming. As for me, I haven't really got a lot. I'm just working on things that like different videos and stuff that I want to get out there. So just watch the space from me, I guess. And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget or on Twitter at CapFidget.
Perfect. And I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube. Got it right this time. And the only time. And Professor Hoenn on Twitter and Twitch. And as for the Goldenrod Podcast, you can find us on the usual podcast platforms. Search for Goldenrod Podcast on YouTube or on your usual podcast app. Leave a like on YouTube or a 5-star review if you're listening as a podcast. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya!